Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to the Explainer. Today we're unpacking a massive, system-wide investigation originally conducted and published on YouTube by creator Pete Z. He and his investigative team spent months, literally months, digging into what they allege is widespread, unchecked fraud within one of Australia's most critical social programs. We're going to look strictly at the evidence they uncovered, mapping out exactly how deep these allegations go and why it matters to absolutely everyone.
To truly understand the gravity of these allegations, we have to start with a staggering number, $52 billion. That's the annual budget we are talking about here. To put that massive figure into perspective, the team points out that it's actually larger than Australia's entire national military budget. By highlighting this number right up front, the investigation instantly establishes the immense financial stakes at play.
But what exactly is all that money for? Well, this brings us to the NDIS, or the National Disability Insurance Scheme. It's an Australian government program created to fund vital support, things like therapy, daily care, specialized equipment, for citizens living with a disability. The intended noble purpose of the NDIS is to help vulnerable people live better, more independent lives. Keep this core purpose in mind, because it creates a very stark contrast with the profound allegations of exploitation we're about to explore. Section 1. Exploiting vulnerable participants. Rick's story. Let's start by looking at the micro-level impact. Now, what's really interesting about this is how the numbers just don't add up. Let's talk about Rick. He's an ex-bouncer left with severe injuries and seizures after a violent attack by a group of patrons at work back in 2017. He relies heavily on the scheme for his daily survival, but the investigation uncovered an immense discrepancy in his care. According to Rick and the support workers, an NDIS provider named Marcia was allegedly billing the government for 10 hours of care per day, specifically targeting those high-rate weekends and public holidays. However, the actual hours worked? Just 3. Pete's team found that workers were told to leave early because Rick supposedly lacked funding, while the provider was simultaneously billing the government for the full 10 hours.
And that brings us to this incredibly specific figure, $10,217.57. The investigators present invoices showing this staggering amount was allegedly charged for just 2 weeks of care. Even worse, documents reveal duplicate invoices, alleging this exact period and exact amount were submitted to the government twice. So actually scratch that. It's not just a discrepancy. That is taxpayer money allegedly disappearing directly into the pockets of the provider, rather than funding Rick's actual care.
When confronted by investigators on undercover audio, the provider's response was frankly chilling. They said, "I take the money for the whole year, but I take it early." Furthermore, when Rick discovered the overspending and brought it up, he was allegedly threatened with having his entire NDIS plan canceled and facing homelessness if he reported it to the authorities. The very system meant to support him was allegedly being used as leverage to silence him. Section 2. Billing for phantom patients. We're transitioning now from micro-level abuse directly into the macro-level world of corporate syndicates. The investigation zeroes in on the timeline of a man named Jamal Sipsabi. Back in 2023, he ran a company called Freedom Care Group. During this time, he was allegedly billing the government for 24/7 disability care for participants who were, in reality, incarcerated prisoners sitting inside jail cells. Yeah, you heard that right. In 2024, after this phantom billing was exposed, his company was permanently banned by the NDIS Commission. But, as the team alleges, he was quickly linked to an entirely new NDIS provider called Lifelink Supports, operating out of a new office. This strongly suggests that an official ban just isn't enough to keep alleged fraudsters out of the network.
And the cost of that specific phantom prisoner scheme? The findings state it was $340,000. That's the exact dollar amount of funds allegedly stolen from the government through fake invoices for people in jail cells before the provider was caught and permanently banned.
Let's move to and see how this builds into Section 3, the loophole network.
When the team visited the office of that new provider, Lifelink Supports, they discovered its director allegedly operates using 6 different legal aliases. These are just slight spelling variations of the exact same name. According to the investigation, these aliases are allegedly used to mask a massive court record consisting of over 50 different court appearances. 50. It really begs the question, how on earth are individuals with such extensive legal histories permitted to direct government-funded care providers? It's like a giant puzzle with pieces deliberately missing.
The alleged siphoning of government money through these shell companies doesn't just hurt the abstract taxpayer either. The details reveal the very real financial fallout when these schemes inevitably collapse. Freedom Care Group, for example, allegedly left over $6 million in company debt. Everyday workers were left $550,000 out of pocket, and $360,000 in workers' compensation insurance was left entirely unpaid. The human cost of this alleged corporate shell game hits everyday working-class people the hardest.
So, the crucial point is, why is there apparent political pushback against investigating these massive financial discrepancies? The creators asked this exact question after a highly contested motion in the Australian government, turning their attention from the providers to the politicians themselves.
Section 4. Avoiding accountability. Let's take a look at the systemic response to all of this.
34. That is the number of Australian senators who voted against a motion to launch a formal investigation into abuse and fraud within the NDIS. This political decision prompted the YouTube investigators to take matters into their own hands. They actually traveled across the country to confront politicians directly about their votes.
The documentation shows several tense confrontations resulting from this road trip. When the investigators approached Senator Mehreen Faruqi and other business operators for comment on their refusal to support the fraud investigation, they were repeatedly met with silence, physical blocking by staff, or immediate police intervention. In one instance, the creators were even issued formal move-on orders by police outside a courthouse while trying to report on a provider's sentencing. This definitely highlights the extreme friction between independent investigators and those in positions of power.
Now, to fairly represent the pushback the investigators received regarding their methods, we can look at a quote from a police officer who intervened during one of their corporate stings. The officer told the YouTubers, "I appreciate what you're trying to do, but the manner in which you're doing it has caused the people working in that business fear and alarm." This brilliantly illustrates the tension between the creators' aggressive, confrontational journalism tactics and the real disruption it caused to the targets of their investigation.
Which leaves us with a critical dilemma. If the system won't investigate itself, who will protect that $52 billion? And, much more importantly, who protects the vulnerable individuals, like Rick, who actually rely on it for their everyday survival? It's a powerful narrative tension between immense public funding and systemic accountability. What do you think is the best way to oversee a program of this massive scale without leaving room for exploitation? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I hope it provided you with a structured, clear look into these incredible allegations. Keep questioning what you see.